The red dust of Kepler 442 be-swirled around Captain Jake Murphy's boots as he walked toward the massive stone ruins. His team had been digging at this site for 3 weeks now, and every day brought new mysteries. The planet was had been dead for thousands of years, but the structures they found were unlike anything humans had ever seen. "Captain, you need to see this," called Lisa Torres from inside the main excavation pit. She was the team's marine biologist, but out here on this alien world, everyone did a bit of everything. Her voice carried excitement and something else, maybe fear. Jake climbed down the metal ladder into the pit. The walls around him were covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and change when he wasn't looking directly at them. At the bottom, Lisa stood next to pilot Ben Clark and engineer Amy Watson. They were all staring at something in the center of the dig site. "What is it?" Jake asked, moving closer. "We're not sure," said Amy, wiping sweat from her forehead. "We found it about an hour ago, buried under 3 layers of different building materials. It doesn't match anything else we've discovered here." Jake looked at the object and felt his breath catch. It was a crystal, but not like any crystal he had ever seen. It stood about 4 feet tall and was perfectly smooth, like it had been carved by expert hands. The surface was clear as glass, but inside, colors moved and danced like living light. Blues and greens and purples swirled together in patterns that made his eyes water if he watched too long. "Have you touched it?" Jake asked. "No way," said Ben quickly. Amy wanted to run every scan first. "We've learned not to touch alien artifacts without knowing what they do." Carl Davis, the xenobiologist, came sliding down the ladder carrying a handful of scanning equipment. "Sorry I'm late. The readings I was getting from up there were off the charts." "What's the story?" Jake pointed at the crystal. "We're trying to figure out what this thing is. Any ideas?" Carl set up his scanners and started taking readings. After a few minutes, he frowned and checked his equipment. "This is strange. I'm getting energy readings, but they're not like anything in our databases. It's almost like the crystal is alive, but not biological life. Something else entirely." Lisa stepped closer to the crystal, fascinated by the way the colors moved inside it. "The patterns are beautiful. They almost look like they're trying to form shapes, like it's trying to communicate." "Communicate?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "With who? Maybe with whoever finds it?" Lisa said softly. She had always been the dreamer of the group, the one who saw wonder where others saw just data. "Look at how the colors brighten when we get closer. It knows we're here." Amy checked her instruments again. "The crystal is definitely producing some kind of energy field. It's not harmful as far as I can tell, but it's unlike anything we've encountered before." Ben looked nervous. "Maybe we should report this to headquarters before we do anything else. They might want to send specialists." "That could take months," Jake said. "And we're supposed to be the specialists?" "This is why they sent us out here. To investigate and report on alien artifacts." Carl finished his scans and looked puzzled. "The energy signature is getting stronger. It's almost like the crystal is responding to our presence, waking up from a long sleep." Lisa moved even closer, drawn by the hypnotic dance of colors inside the crystal. "The patterns are definitely getting more complex. Look, they're forming geometric shapes now." Jake watched as swirls of blue and green light began to organize themselves into triangles and circles inside the crystal. It was beautiful and terrifying. At the same time, "Everyone stay back. We don't know what this thing might do." But Lisa was already reaching out her hand, mesmerized by the light show. "It's so beautiful. I think it wants us to touch it." "Lisa, no!" Jake shouted, but it was too late. Her fingers made contact with the smooth surface of the crystal, and everything changed. The alien symbols on the walls began to glow with the same colors as the crystal. The air itself seemed to vibrate with energy. And the crystal exploded with light so bright that everyone had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, they found themselves staring at something impossible. A woman stood next to the crystal, but she wasn't quite human. She was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shimmer like the surface of water. Her hair was long and dark, flowing around her shoulders as if moved by an invisible wind. Her eyes were the same swirling colors they had seen inside the crystal, blues and greens and purples that shifted and changed as she looked at them. "Who dares to wake me from my prison?" she asked, and her voice carried the sound of distant thunder. The 5 humans stood frozen, unable to speak. Amy dropped her scanner. Ben's mouth hung open. Carl's instruments beeped frantically as they tried to measure something that was beyond their understanding. The woman, or whatever she was, looked at each of them in turn. When her gaze fell on Lisa, she tilted her head with interest. "You are the one who touched the crystal? You are the one who freed me," Lisa found her voice first. "Who are you? What are you?" "I am Zara," the being said, and when she spoke her name, the crystal behind her pulsed with light. "I am what your people might call a djinn, though that word carries meanings that are not quite correct. I am one of the last of my kind, imprisoned in this crystal for more years than your species has existed." Jake stepped forward, his captain's training finally overcoming his shock. "Imprisoned? By who?" Zara's expression grew sad. "By those who came before, as a test for those who would come after. And now that test falls to you, humans of Earth. What kind of test?" Amy asked, her engineer's mind already working on the problem. Zara smiled, and it was like watching sunrise on an alien world. "The oldest test of all. I am bound by cosmic law to grant 3 wishes to the one who freed me. 3 wishes of unlimited power. You may ask for anything your heart desires, and I must make it so." The team exchanged glances. This was beyond anything they had trained for, beyond anything anyone on Earth had ever encountered. 3 wishes, Ben repeated slowly. "Like in the old stories." "Your stories come from encounters with my people long ago," Zara explained. "But those encounters ended differently than your tales suggest. Every species that has found one of us has made the same choices. They wish for power, for wealth, for dominion over others. And in doing so, they reveal their true nature." Carl stepped closer, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. "What happens to species that fail your test?" Zara's expression grew darker. "They are marked as unworthy. The galaxy is vast and full of dangers. Species that prove themselves to be selfish and destructive rarely survive long enough to spread beyond their homeworlds." Lisa felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She was the one who had touched the crystal, which meant the choice was hers to make. 3 wishes, unlimited power, the fate of humanity potentially hanging in the balance. "How long do I have to decide?" she asked. "Time moves differently from my kind," Zara replied. "But for you, I would say you have until your sun sets on this world. Choose wisely, human. Your species' future may depend on it." As if summoned by her words, the alien sun began to sink toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the ancient ruins. The crystal continued to pulse with soft light, and Zara stood beside it like a guardian of mysteries too vast for human understanding. Jake looked at his team, then at the being who had just changed everything they thought they knew about the universe. Whatever choice Lisa made, nothing would ever be the same again. The alien sun hung low in the sky, painting the ruins in shades of orange and purple. Lisa stood in the excavation pit, staring at Zara while her mind raced with possibilities. 3 wishes. Unlimited power. The weight of humanity's future pressing down on her shoulders like a mountain. "We need to talk about this as a team," Jake said, his voice steady despite the impossible situation they found themselves in. "Lisa, you don't have to make this decision alone." Amy nodded quickly. "He's right. This affects all of humanity, not just you." Ben was pacing back and forth, his pilot's instincts telling him to run from danger he couldn't understand. "This is insane. We're talking about wishes from a magical being. This stuff doesn't happen in real life." "It's happening now," Carl said quietly, never taking his eyes off Zara. His scientific instruments were still beeping frantically, trying to measure something that shouldn't exist. "The question is, what do we do about it?" Zara watched their discussion with interest, her swirling eyes studying each human in turn. Your species talks together before making decisions. This is unusual. Most beings I've encountered make their wishes immediately, driven by greed or fear. What kinds of wishes do they usually make? Lisa asked. Zara's expression grew sad. Always the same patterns. First, they wish for great wealth, thinking material possessions will bring happiness. Then they wish for power over others, believing control will bring security. Finally, they wish for immortality, hoping to enjoy their wealth and power forever. It doesn't work out? Jake guessed. It never does, Zara replied. Wealth without wisdom leads to waste. Power without compassion leads to tyranny. Immortality without purpose leads to madness. Every species that has found me has destroyed itself within a few generations of getting their wishes. And he frowned. But you still have to grant the wishes, even knowing they'll cause harm? I am bound by cosmic law, Zara explained. I cannot refuse, and I cannot lie about what I am offering. But I can hope that someday someone will surprise me. Lisa walked closer to the crystal, feeling its energy pulse against her skin. Tell me about your people. What were the Jinn like before you were imprisoned? We were guardians, Zara said, her voice growing softer. We watched over younger species, helped them grow and learn. We guided them away from the mistakes that could destroy them. But the architects decided that direct help was not the way. They believed that true wisdom could only come from within. So they trapped you all in crystals and scattered you across the galaxy as tests? Carl said, understanding dawning in his voice. Exactly. Each species that reaches a certain level of development will eventually find one of us. How they use their wishes shows what kind of people they truly are. It determines whether they are ready to join the greater galactic community or whether they are too dangerous to be allowed to spread among the stars. Ben stopped pacing. Too dangerous? What happens to species that fail the test? Zara's eyes darkened. There are forces in the galaxy that eliminate threats before they can grow too large. Species that prove themselves to be selfish and destructive rarely survive long after failing our test. The team fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. This wasn't just about getting 3 wishes. This was about proving that humanity deserved to survive and thrive among the stars. No pressure, Amy muttered. Jake looked at his team, then at Lisa. What are you thinking? Lisa was quiet for a long moment, staring at the crystal and the being who had emerged from it. I'm thinking about all the stories we've heard about genies and wishes. They always end badly because people are selfish. They want things for themselves. That's human nature, Ben said. Everyone looks out for themselves first. Is it though? Lisa asked. When the colony ship Endeavour lost power 3 years ago, Captain Rodriguez stayed behind to manually restart the engines. He knew it would probably kill him, but he did it anyway to save 800 people. And when the mining station on Europa was hit by that solar storm, Amy added. The entire crew worked for 16 hours straight to save people they'd never met, Carl nodded. Humans do selfish things, but we also do selfless things. Maybe that's what makes us different. Jake felt an idea forming, something that went against every instinct for personal gain. Lisa, what if the first wish wasn't about us at all? What do you mean? She asked. Look at her, Jake said, gesturing toward Zara. She's been trapped in that crystal for thousands of years. She talks about her people like they were good, like they helped others. But now she's stuck granting wishes to species that always disappoint her. Lisa's eyes widened as she understood what Jake was suggesting. You want me to wish for her freedom? Think about it, Jake continued. Every other species has used their wishes selfishly. What if we did the opposite? What if we used our first wish to help someone else instead of ourselves? Ben looked at them like they were crazy. Are you insane? We're talking about unlimited power here. We could end poverty, cure diseases, give humanity technology that would advance us by thousands of years. Could we, though? Amy asked thoughtfully. Look at what happened to all those other species. Maybe the problem isn't what they wished for, but why they wished for it. Zara had been listening to their discussion with growing amazement. No species had ever talked about using wishes to help others. They barely even considered her as a person, just as a tool to get what they wanted. You would truly consider using one of your 3 wishes to free me? She asked, her voice filled with wonder. Tell us what that would mean, Lisa said. If I wished for your freedom, what would happen? The cosmic bonds that bind me to grant wishes would be broken, Zara explained. I would regain my full power and my ability to choose my own path, but you would lose your remaining 2 wishes forever. I would not be able to grant you anything else, but you would be free, Lisa said. I would be free, Zara confirmed. The team looked at each other. This was the moment that would define not just their lives, but possibly the future of their entire species. There's something else to consider, Carl said slowly. If we're being tested on our character, then maybe the right choice isn't about what we gain, but about what we're willing to give up. Amy nodded. Every other species failed because they were selfish. Maybe the only way to pass is to be selfless. Ben shook his head. But what if we're wrong? What if this is all a trick, and we're throwing away humanity's only chance at getting unlimited power? Then we fail the same way we would have failed anyway, Jake said. Because if we can't trust ourselves to do the right thing, we don't deserve to pass any test. Lisa looked at Zara, seeing not a magical being who could grant wishes, but a person who had been trapped and alone for thousands of years. A person who had watched species after species disappoint her with their greed and selfishness. Zara, Lisa said, if I wished for your freedom, would you still help humanity? Not because you had to, but because you wanted to. Zara's eyes filled with something that might have been tears. No one has ever asked me what I wanted before. If you freed me, I would help your people not because I was bound to, but because I chose to. Because you showed me that there are still good hearts in the universe. Lisa took a deep breath and stepped forward. The alien sun was almost touching the horizon now, and she could feel the weight of cosmic forces watching her decision. I know what I want to wish for, she said. The crystal pulsed brighter, and Zara straightened, ready to hear the words that would change everything. I wish for you to be completely free from your bonds and to have your full power restored, with no obligation to grant any more wishes to anyone. The words hung in the air like a challenge to the universe itself. The moment Lisa spoke her wish, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. The crystal behind Zara erupted with light so brilliant that the human team had to cover their eyes. The ancient symbols on the walls blazed like fire, and the ground beneath their feet vibrated with power that felt older than planets. When the light faded, Zara stood transformed. The shimmering quality of her skin had become more pronounced, and her eyes now held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. She looked at her hands with wonder, flexing her fingers as if feeling them for the first time in millennia. It is done, she whispered, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself sing. After 7,000 years, I am free. But then, something unexpected happened. Zara fell to her knees, and tears began streaming down her face. The mighty being who had emerged from the crystal was crying like a lost child. I cannot believe it, she sobbed. In all my years of imprisonment, across hundreds of worlds and countless species, no one has ever chosen to free me. No one has ever seen me as more than a tool to get what they wanted. Lisa knelt beside her, instinctively offering comfort. You were a person trapped in a terrible situation. Of course we wanted to help you. But you gave up so much, Zara said, looking up at Lisa with eyes full of gratitude and disbelief. You had unlimited power within your grasp. You could have wished for anything. Wealth beyond measure, technology to advance your species by thousands of years, the power to reshape reality itself. And instead you chose to help a stranger. Jake helped both women to their feet. That's what humans do. At least that's what we try to do. Amy was staring at her instruments, which were showing readings that defied explanation. The energy levels around here just increased by about 1,000%. Zara, what exactly are you now that you're free? Zara wiped away her tears and stood tall. When she spoke again, her voice carried the authority of ages. I am what I was always meant to be. A guardian of the cosmic order, a protector of emerging civilizations. A bridge between the young species and the ancient powers that watch over the galaxy. Ancient powers? Carl asked, his scientific mind racing to understand the implications. The galaxy is far older and more complex than your people realize, Zara explained. There are beings that have existed since the first stars formed civilizations, that span entire galactic clusters and forces that can create or destroy worlds with a thought. Most young species never learn about them because they destroy themselves before they're ready for such knowledge. Ben looked nervous. And we're ready? You just proved that you are, Zara said with a smile that could have lit up solar systems. By choosing compassion over power, you have passed the greatest test any species can face. You have shown that you possess the wisdom necessary to handle great responsibility. The crystal behind her began to pulse in a new rhythm, and Zara placed her hand on its surface. Let me show you the truth behind your test. The crystal's surface became like a window, showing images that played out like a movie. The team watched in amazement as scene after scene unfolded before them. They saw the Jinn as they once were beings of incredible power and wisdom, who traveled the galaxy helping younger species learn and grow. They saw beautiful worlds where the Jinn had taught primitive peoples about agriculture, medicine, and the stars. They saw wars prevented and disasters averted by the gentle guidance of these cosmic guardians. We were teachers, Zara explained as the images continued. We believe that every species deserved a chance to reach their full potential. We spent millions of years nurturing civilizations, helping them avoid the mistakes that could destroy them. Then the images changed, showing a species of beings that seemed to be made of living light. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time, with forms that shifted between geometric patterns and almost human shapes. The architects, Zara said, her voice growing sad. They were older than us, wiser in some ways, but they disagreed with our methods. They believed that true growth could only come from within, that species who were helped too much would never develop real wisdom. The images showed a great debate between the Jinn and the architects, taking place on a world that existed between dimensions. The Jinn argued for continued guidance and help. The architects argued for letting species find their own way, even if it meant many would fail. The architects won the debate, Zara continued. They created the crystal prisons and the wish system as a compromise. We would still interact with young species, but only as a test of their character. Those who proved themselves worthy would be allowed to join the galactic community. Those who failed would be left to face the consequences of their choices. Shook her head. That seems cruel. Why not just help everyone? Because help that comes too easily is often not valued, Zara replied. Look at your own history. The greatest advances in human civilization came not from gifts, but from struggles overcome through cooperation and sacrifice. The architects believed that this principle applied to entire species. The images in the crystal now showed other worlds, other species that had found imprisoned Jinn. Jake and his team watched in horror as civilization after civilization made their 3 wishes and then destroyed themselves within generations. Some fell to wars fought with weapons too powerful for their wisdom. Others collapsed under the weight of wealth they hadn't earned. Still others went mad with immortality they weren't prepared to handle. Every single one? Lisa asked quietly. Every single one, Zara confirmed. Until today, until you. Carl was frantically taking notes, trying to understand the implications of what they were learning. How many species have been tested? Thousands, Zara replied. The galaxy is littered with the ruins of civilizations that chose poorly, but the architects were not entirely wrong. Those species were not ready for greater power. They would have destroyed themselves eventually, with or without our help. But humanity is different? Jake asked. Zara turned to look at each of them in turn. Your species has something that we have rarely seen in the galaxy. You have the ability to grow beyond your basic instincts. Most species remain trapped by their evolutionary programming. They are territorial. hierarchical, driven by competition and the need to dominate. But humans have developed something remarkable. What's that? Amy asked. The ability to choose cooperation over competition, sacrifice over self-interest, hope over fear, Zara explained. It's not that humans are naturally good, you have just as much capacity for selfishness and cruelty as any other species. But you also have the unique ability to recognize those impulses and choose differently. Ben was still struggling to understand. But lots of humans are selfish and cruel. We have wars, poverty, crime. How does that make us special? Because you also have humans who choose to fight against those things, Zara said. You have people who dedicate their lives to helping others, who risk everything to protect strangers, who dream of building better worlds for future generations. Most species only develop that capacity after millions of years of evolution. Humans developed it in just a few 100,000 years. The implications were staggering. Lisa felt the weight of it settling over her like a blanket. So what happens now? What does it mean that we passed your test? Zara smiled, and this time her smile held promises of wonders beyond imagination. Now, humanity takes its first real steps into the galactic community. Now you learn that you are not alone in the universe, and that there are friends among the stars who have been waiting for you to prove you were ready to meet them. The crystal pulsed brighter, and suddenly the air around them shimmered with new possibilities. Other lights began appearing in the distance, growing closer with each passing moment. They are coming, Zara said with excitement. The other guardians? The benevolent ancient races, the civilizations that have been watching and waiting. They want to meet the species that finally passed the test. Jake looked at his team, seeing wonder and fear and excitement in their faces. Are we ready for this? Nobody is ever truly ready for their first contact with the greater galaxy, Zara replied. But you have already proven that you have what matters most, good hearts and the wisdom to use them. As the alien sun finally set on Kepler 442b, new lights began rising in the sky. Ships from across the galaxy, coming to welcome humanity into a community they never knew existed. The lights in the sky grew brighter as ships from across the galaxy approached Kepler 442b. Jake and his team stood in the ancient ruins, watching history unfold before their eyes. But Zara's expression had grown serious, and the joy of her freedom was now mixed with concern. There is something I must tell you, she said, her voice carrying the weight that made everyone turn to look at her. Your choice to free me has sent ripples across the cosmic network. Every ancient being in the galaxy now knows that humanity has passed the test. This brings great opportunities, but also great dangers. Amy checked her instruments again. The readings were off the charts, showing energy signatures approaching from multiple directions. What kind of dangers? Not all the ancient powers in the galaxy are benevolent, Zara explained. There are entities that feed on the failure of young species. They encourage civilizations to make selfish choices, then harvest the chaos and destruction that follows. Your success threatens their feeding grounds? Ben looked up at the approaching lights with new worry. You mean some of those ships might be hostile? Some will be, Zara confirmed. The Devourers have been watching your species for decades, waiting for you to find one of our crystals. They expected you to fail like all the others. Your success has made them very angry. Carl was taking frantic notes. These Devourers, what are they exactly? Ancient parasites, Zara said with disgust. They were once a normal species, but they chose to transform themselves into something horrible. They survive by feeding on negative emotions, fear, anger, despair. They manipulate young civilizations into destroying themselves, then feast on the suffering that follows. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. And they're coming here? They will try to test you again, Zara said. They cannot accept that any species could truly be worthy. They will attempt to prove that humanity is just as selfish and destructive as all the others. Jake stepped closer to Zara. How do we fight something like that? The same way you passed the first test, Zara replied. By being true to who you are. The Devourers expect you to respond with violence and fear. If you do, you prove their point. But if you respond with wisdom and compassion, even to enemies, you prove that your worthiness is real. The first ship landed about 100 yards from the excavation site. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, all flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to shift between silver and gold. When the door opened, beings of pure light stepped out. They moved like dancing flames, but their presence felt warm and welcoming. The Luminari, Zara said with relief. They are old friends and allies of the Jinn. They have come to welcome humanity to the galactic community. But even as the friendly aliens approached, darker ships appeared on the horizon. These vessels looked like they were made of shadow and sharp angles. They radiated cold and menace, making the humans instinctively step closer together. The Devourers, Zara said grimly. They waste no time. The Luminari reached the excavation site first. Their leader, a being of golden light that roughly resembled a tall human, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. Greetings, young humans. We have watched your species with great interest. Your choice today proves that you are ready to join the community of wise civilizations. Jake stepped forward, feeling the weight of representing his entire species. We are honored to meet you. We had no idea we were being watched. All species are watched, the Luminari explained. It is necessary to protect the galaxy from those who would do harm. But you have shown that humanity chooses cooperation over conquest, sacrifice over selfishness. This is rare and precious. The dark ships landed with a sound like breaking glass. When their doors opened, things that might once have been alive stepped out. The Devourers looked like they were made of smoke and hate, with eyes that burned with cold fire. Their very presence made the air feel thick and poisonous. So, the lead Devourer said in a voice like grinding metal, these are the humans who think they are so special. We shall see how special they really are. Zara moved protectively in front of the human team. The test is over, Vrex. They have proven themselves worthy. The Devourer called Vrex laughed, and the sound made everyone's skin crawl. One moment of selflessness means nothing. We have studied this species for years. They are violent, greedy, and destructive. They will show their true nature soon enough. More ships continued to arrive. Some carried beings of incredible beauty and wisdom, the ancient races that had been waiting to welcome humanity. Others brought creatures of darkness and malice and entities that profited from the destruction of civilizations. The archaeological site had become a meeting ground for forces that usually operated in the shadows between stars. Why are they all coming here? Amy asked quietly. Because your choice has forced a reckoning, Zara explained. For thousands of years, the cosmic community has been divided. Some believe that young species can grow and change. Others believe that all species are fundamentally selfish and destructive. Your success challenges everything the pessimists believe. Vrex stepped closer, his form shifting and writhing like living shadow. We propose a new test. Let us see how. These humans react when faced with real choices, real consequences. What kind of test? Jake asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Your world, Vrex said with obvious pleasure. Earth, we will give you the power to reshape it however you wish. You can eliminate poverty, end all disease, stop all wars. But to do so, you must use methods that require sacrifice from others. Let us see if you remain so selfless when the cost is paid by people you do not know. The Luminari leader spoke urgently. This is not necessary. They have already proven themselves. Have they? Vrex challenged. One small act of kindness toward a single being? That proves nothing. Let them make choices that affect billions of their own kind. Let them decide who lives and who dies, who prospers and who suffers. Then we will see their true nature. Lisa felt the weight of the challenge settling over them. This wasn't just about their small team anymore. This was about every human being. On Earth and in the colonies. What exactly are you proposing? Vrex's burning eyes fixed on her. We will give you and your team the power to solve all of humanity's problems instantly. But every solution will require a choice. To end poverty, you must take wealth from the rich. To cure all disease, you must transfer the illnesses to healthy volunteers. To stop all wars, you must remove free will from those who would fight. Every benefit comes with a cost paid by others. That's not solving problems, Amy said angrily. That's just moving suffering around. Exactly, Rex said with satisfaction. So what will you choose? Will you accept these costs to help the many? Or will you refuse to help anyone because you are unwilling to make the hard choices? Carl understood the trap immediately. Either choice proves his point. If we accept the costs, we show we're willing to sacrifice some for others. If we refuse, we show we're unwilling to help when it's difficult. Very good, Rex said mockingly. Your species does have some intelligence. But Jake was thinking about everything they had learned about humanity's unique nature. There's a third option. Oh? Rex leaned forward with interest. And what might that be? We find better solutions, Jake said simply. We don't accept that suffering is necessary. We work together to find ways to help everyone without hurting anyone. Rex laughed again. Impossible. Resources are limited. Choices must be made. Someone always pays the price. Maybe for other species, Lisa said, understanding Jake's point. But humans specialize in finding impossible solutions to terrible problems. Zara watched the exchange with growing pride and hope. The humans were not falling into the Devourer's trap. They were doing exactly what made them special, refusing to accept that bad choices were the only choices. Very well, Rex said, his form growing larger and more menacing. Let us put this to the test. We will transport you back to Earth with the power to reshape your world. But know this, every day you delay, thousands of your people suffer and die from problems you could solve instantly. How long will your principles last when you watch your own kind perish because of your refusal to make hard choices? The other ancient beings watched silently as cosmic forces gathered around the small group of humans. In moments, they would be transported back to Earth with the power of gods and the weight of impossible decisions. The real test of humanity's worthiness was about to begin. One moment they were standing in the alien ruins on Kepler 442b, and the next they were back on Earth. Jake and his team found themselves in the main conference room of the Global Space Agency headquarters. But they were not alone. Zara stood with them, and the cosmic power that Rex had promised was real. Jake could feel it humming in his bones, the ability to reshape reality itself. Around the conference table sat the most important leaders on Earth, President Martinez of the Global Council, Director Wong of the Space Agency, and representatives from every major nation and colony. They all looked confused and worried. Captain Murphy, Director Wong said slowly, we got your emergency transmission about finding an alien artifact, but then you and your team just vanished. That was 6 hours ago. Where have you been? Jake looked at his team, then at Zara, who remained invisible to everyone else in the room. She nodded encouragingly. We need to tell you everything, Jake said. Humanity has just been tested by cosmic forces we never knew existed. And we passed, but now we face an even bigger challenge. Over the next hour, Jake and his team explained everything that had happened. The discovery of the crystal, meeting Zara, the wishes, the revelation about the galactic community and the new test they now faced. Most of the world leaders looked skeptical until Zara made herself visible to them. The room fell silent as the cosmic being appeared. President Martinez gripped the edge of the table. This is really happening. It is, Zara confirmed. And now, your species must prove that your worthiness was not just a lucky accident. You have the power to solve every problem facing humanity, but each solution offered by the Devourers requires innocent people to suffer. Director Wong leaned forward. What kind of problems are we talking about? Jake felt the cosmic power surge within him, and suddenly he knew. He could see every problem on Earth as clearly as if he were reading a book. I can end world hunger instantly by transferring food from wealthy nations to poor ones, but it would crash the global economy and cause different kinds of suffering. I can cure all diseases by moving them to volunteers, but that just means other people get sick. I can stop all wars by removing free will from potential fighters, but that would destroy human freedom. The Devourers want us to believe these are our only choices, Amy added, but we know better. President Martinez looked around the room at the other leaders. What are you proposing instead? Lisa stepped forward. We do what humans do best. We work together to find solutions that help everyone. How? Asked Dr. Kim, the representative from the Pacific Federation. These problems have existed for centuries. If there were easy answers, we would have found them already. Maybe the answers aren't easy, Carl said, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. The cosmic power we've been given doesn't just let us move problems around. It lets us understand them completely. And when you really understand a problem, you can find better ways to solve it. Jake closed his eyes and let the cosmic awareness flow through him. He could see the entire planet, every human being, every resource, every connection between cause and effect. It was overwhelming at first, but gradually patterns began to emerge. I can see it, he said softly. The solutions are there. They're not simple, and they're not quick, but they exist. He opened his eyes and looked at the assembled leaders. For hunger, we don't need to take food from anyone. We can show farmers how to increase their yields using techniques that will work with their local conditions. We can connect surplus production with areas of need using transportation methods that create jobs instead of destroying them. We can teach communities to grow their own food in ways that improve the land instead of damaging it. Zara smiled proudly. You see it. The Devourers could never understand this approach because they can only think in terms of taking from some to give to others. Ben was staring out the window at the city beyond. What about the diseases? Jake let the cosmic knowledge flow through him again. We don't need to transfer illnesses to volunteers. We can accelerate research that's already happening, guide scientists to discoveries they're close to making anyway, provide resources for treatment and prevention that benefit everyone. And the wars? President Martinez asked. Wars happen because people feel threatened or desperate, Amy said, understanding dawning in her voice. If we solve the underlying problems, the hunger, the poverty, the competition for resources, then people have less reason to fight. But this will take time. Director Wong pointed out. Years, maybe decades. Meanwhile, people are still suffering. The air in the room suddenly grew cold. Vrex's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Exactly. While you pursue these impossible dreams of helping everyone, real people die. Children starve while you plan better farming techniques. Patients suffer while you research new medicines. Soldiers kill each other while you work on long-term peace. Show yourself, Jake demanded. The Devourer materialized in the center of the room, his shadow form writhing with malice. I offer you immediate solutions. Save millions today by accepting that some must suffer. Or cling to your naive ideals while you watch those millions die. But Lisa stepped forward, unafraid. You're wrong about something important. You think we have to choose between helping people quickly and helping them completely, but we can do both. Impossible, Vrex snarled. Watch us, Lisa said simply. She turned to Jake. Use the cosmic power to accelerate everything. Not just research, not just farming, but human cooperation itself. Speed up the processes that are already working, enhance the connections between people who want to help each other, amplify the good that humans are already doing. Jake understood immediately. Instead of solving problems for humanity, we help humanity solve problems faster and better. The cosmic power flowed through him. Differently now, not as a tool to force change, but as a way to support and enhance human efforts. Around the world, researchers working on hunger felt sudden bursts of inspiration. Doctors studying diseases found new connections they had never seen before. Peace negotiators discovered common ground they hadn't known existed, but more importantly, people everywhere began to feel more connected to each other. The barriers of language, culture, and geography seemed less important. The desire to help others grew stronger, while the impulses toward selfishness and greed grew weaker. Vrex watched in growing rage as his test backfired completely. This is not how it works. You cannot change the fundamental nature of your species. We're not changing our fundamental nature, Carl said with growing excitement as he watched the effects ripple across the planet. We're amplifying the best parts of it while reducing the worst parts. Humans have always had the capacity for cooperation and compassion. We're just making it easier for those qualities to win. Zara was practically glowing with pride. This is why your species is special? Other races try to solve problems by imposing solutions from above. Humans solve problems by working together from within. The cosmic power Jake wielded was incredible, but he was using it in a way no other species had ever attempted. Instead of forcing change, he was nurturing the change that humans wanted to make themselves. Instead of making hard choices about who would suffer, he was making it easier for everyone to choose cooperation over conflict around the world. The effects were immediate and profound. Not because problems disappeared overnight, but because humanity's ability to solve them together grew exponentially. Farmers shared knowledge across continents. Scientists collaborated without regard for national boundaries. Communities that had been enemies for generations began talking about their shared problems instead of their differences. Vrex let out a scream of frustration that shattered windows across the building. This changes nothing. Your species will still fail. Power corrupts, and you now have more power than any young race has ever possessed. But Jake was already addressing that concern. The cosmic power flowed through him one more time, not to solve problems or change minds, but to distribute itself. Every human being on Earth suddenly gained a tiny fraction of cosmic awareness, not enough to be dangerous, but enough to understand their connection to all other humans. Power doesn't corrupt when everyone shares it, Jake said as the energy settled into billions of human minds. And it's not really power at all when it only works through cooperation and compassion. Rex realized he had been completely defeated. The test that was supposed to prove humanity's unworthiness had instead demonstrated their unique genius. Other species had failed because they tried to use cosmic power to dominate or control. Humans had succeeded by using it to enhance their natural tendency toward cooperation. The architects will hear of this, Vrex growled before vanishing in a cloud of bitter smoke. Zara laughed with pure joy. Oh, they already know. They are watching with great interest. In fact, they are so impressed that they have decided to offer humanity something that has never been offered to any species before. What's that? Lisa asked. Partnership, Zara said. Not as junior members of the galactic community, but as equals. Your approach to using cosmic power has shown possibilities that even the architects never considered. They want to learn from you as much as they want to teach you. President Martinez looked around the room at the other world leaders. Seeing wonder and hope in their faces,